they do want to be able to take their own time, and it's 10:45, so we need to let them get started. So thank you all for coming. I'll let them introduce themselves. I don't know if you.
I'll be there in just a second.
Did you want to start out?
Sure, yeah, I'll start out.
I'm not sure what format you have.
Yeah, no, it's all good. I'm Maggie Elder with Metro United Way. Sorry, we went over on the last session. Some of you guys were in here, some of you weren't. So I'm Maggie Elder with Metro United Way. The intention of this session is to really learn more about accessing resources for students. We just spent the last session, if you were with us, talking about Metro United Way's 211, which is part of what we help the community do. We provide information and referral service through both 211 is a phone number, you just dial 211. You can also find it on our website, and there's also an app about it. But that is an information referral service that it's part of how we see ourselves meeting basic needs in the community. What happens is if you contact 211 and you say, I don't have any food today, then we're going to refer you to someone who has food available in your area. If you have an abuse situation, we're going to refer you to the organization that can help you deal with the challenges around abuse. The shelter question, if you're homeless, if you're sleeping in your car, the same thing is going to happen. So the purpose of this conversation today is to talk to 3 experts about what happens in each of the situations I just described. So food safety or food security, homelessness, and safety. So Stan from Dare Care, Tamara from the Center for Women and Families, and Natalie from the Coalition for Homeless are each going to spend a little bit of time talking about how it works. Now, to give them a little bit of a key, can somebody give just a couple examples of why you might need to what kind of challenges you've experienced with students? Yes.
I had a student that came in on more than one occasion with big bruises. She had a bruise on her arm, and then one day she had a bruise like right here, on her face. After the fact, I found out that she'd been an alcoholic. She was probably in her, she was probably 24, 25, 26. She'd been an alcoholic since she was about 14. Yeah.
Okay, thank you for sharing. Another example, something you've experienced with a student?
We have students with legal problems, and they just get a total runaround, even from legal aid. There are reasons why legal aid can't take the case, and if it's custody or child support or something. And then they send them to shyster attorneys who are cheaper to begin with, but they keep wanting money to continue. Sorry, they are.
Right. Yeah, I would tell you that this panel, they may have some information. I would say Tamara probably has a little bit to give you on the child, particularly around the abuse situations. That 211 would also refer into organizations that connect with legal services as a whole. So if 211 is an umbrella, it'll connect you to all sorts of different types of resources. These are 3 specific questions that we wanted to address in this panel. But 211, it's 24 hours a day. It has 9 counties in Kentucky, 3 in Indiana, and you can call and ask the question and put the situation on the table for the counselor to help you through. One other example.
I don't know.
Okay, sure.
Great students with big problems. Student who just was overwhelmed for the day. She was crying. We didn't know why. We talked to her. There was no food on the shelves to feed. She didn't know what she was going to feed her kids that night. I had no idea.
Stan is prepared to answer that question. So, who wants to go first? There's no pressure. You're in the headlights. Natalie?
Okay, I'm Natalie Harris, and I am with the Coalition for the Homeless, and we're the lead advocacy agency for the homeless here in Louisville, Jefferson County. We actually do very little direct service ourselves. We are more the overarching agency that works with over 30 agencies in our community who are serving homeless people. And that may not be the only population they serve, but they at least have programs for homeless people within their organizations. And basically what we do is try to figure out how to coordinate all of those agencies so that we fill gaps and we figure out what is still needed, and mostly we figure out how to get people through the system as quickly as possible so that there's room for new people to come in, and our ultimate goal is to run out of business. And I want to start a little bit just about, and I think you did a great job actually, of hitting who are the homeless. I think people tend to think that homeless people are somehow different from the rest of us. And that, well, that's those people who are homeless. We have kind of a stereotype of the person with the shopping cart, who mostly has a mental illness and has been on the streets for years. And that is a small segment of the homeless population, but in general, what the homeless have in common is they're poor. And so I think all of us know somebody in our family that has a mental illness, that has a chemical dependency, that has domestic violence issues, that has sketchy work experience. But what is different in my family versus some of the families that we see coming through the shelter is that we have the financial wherewithal so that we can either cover that up or that we can address it within our community. And so who you will see that ends up at the shelter are people who have very little income, and so all it takes is, you know, one giant hospital bill, a car breaking down, some other major thing that happens in their life, and then they can't ever catch back up again. What we see is that right now, as we keep hearing we're losing our middle class. So we have a small group of people with a lot of money and a lot of people who are just barely making it. And that's about 90% of the people that come through the homeless shelters. They're families that are in that situation. There's a small segment that is actually getting smaller in our city of that chronic homeless definition, which tend to be more men, more mentally ill, more chemical dependency. That's the group that you see the most, but that's also the group we've had the most resources for recently. So that group is getting smaller, as well as homeless veterans. We actually have a goal to end homelessness among veterans here in Louisville by 2016. And I think we actually might do it because that group is getting smaller and smaller, and we think that we can do that with the resources from the VA. But family homelessness, although it hasn't blown up, every year gets a little larger in our community. And as we know, who is poor in our state tend to be a majority of single women with children. And so that's who also tends to end up in our homeless shelters. And on any given day, we have about 1,500 homeless people in Louisville, either in services or sleeping out. And over a year, we have about 8,800 homeless people. So you can see how many of those people are homeless for a long period of time. That chronic group in Louisville, on average, is homeless for about 4 years. And the group that is more prevalent is really just about 3 months. So it's a poverty issue where there's this issue, they have to go into shelter to save up the money to get back into a place. But what we're trying to do is prevent that from cycling. So you're most likely, with that being the situation, seeing quite a few people who come in and out of homelessness at some point while they're coming to school. And what we've been trying to do is make it easier for you to serve that population. In the old days, which was only about a year and a half ago, you would have called 211 and they would have given you a list of homeless shelters, depending upon the makeup of your family. At least 3 homeless shelters that you would have qualified for, up to 7 homeless shelters. And so all you could do is call that shelter to find out what time they started taking people in. You would show up there and you would wait in line, and some of them had a lottery, and so you could have stayed there for 12 nights, and then on the 13th night you don't make the lottery, and you're back on the streets again. And you have to go find another shelter and stand in line and see if you get in there. So we have ended that practice, which is good. Now what should happen when you call 211 is they should give you the number that's in the inside of that little street tips booklet I gave you. So if you just call 637-BEDS, that is now the call center that will make reservations for people to get into a shelter. If somebody's in a shelter, now they don't have to come stand in line again the next night. All they have to do, if they're at the next morning when they leave, is to let someone know, I want my bed again tonight, and they will make that reservation, so they don't have to keep doing this every day. But if a person is newly homeless, they just need to call that number, and I would recommend calling it as close to 10 o'clock in the morning, or coming to the address that's there if it's a weekday, as close to 10 o'clock in the morning as possible, because the beds fill up every day. There've been a couple of times when we had some extra beds, but very seldom do we have extra beds. If it's a family with kids, what will happen, because that population is harder to house, because you have to have the right makeup, they will actually, if there's not a bed that night, they will put their name and number on the list, and they will call them as soon as they have a vacancy. They will ask them, I think, to call once a week just to say, yeah, I still need to get into the shelter. If it's a single person, they actually have to keep calling every day until they get a bed, but that is usually a lot faster than the family vacancies. I think if there's something else.
I have a question.
Yeah.
If someone continues to get a bed, reserves a bed, how long do they have that reservation? Do you send them somewhere else to get out of the situation, or is it just, I stay here until the first
Within
of whatever?
14 days in the shelter, it's usually earlier than that, but within 14 days, somebody will come and meet with them and do a common assessment.
Uh-huh.
And then they will try to figure out, is this somebody who is that kind of chronically homeless person who qualifies for permanent supportive housing? And so they'll start making the referral for that process, as long as the person accepts it. Or are they somebody who is in a middle range where it's really more of a, I need to save money so that I can do a deposit, or I need some job training, and so I just need some time. So they'll start referring that person to transitional housing. And then there are a group of people that they'll assess and they'll say, really, this person is gonna be fine. They just needed to get through this transition. And so we're probably going to just help them with a deposit and to move back into an apartment.
Okay.
And so they'll do that assessment and then try to help that person figure out where's the next step.
Okay.
Also, I did want to hit on one other thing, which is that we're seeing in Louisville also, and this is nationwide, an increase in the young adults. So I know you have a lot of non-traditional students, but you also have young students as well. So last year, in 2012, we had, the number blew up to 555 18 to 24-year-olds that were living in the adult shelters as adults, not with families. So that number is really increasing as young people find it harder to get jobs, harder to get into college, harder to figure out what's next with this economy. That number actually went back down again in 2013 to the 300s. But that is a group that we're working on, and I wanted to make sure that you knew that the YMCA Safe Place has a drop-in center for that group. So if somebody needs to wash their clothes, take a shower, get sundry items, talk to somebody, they have a computer room. That's all over on their campus on, I think it's 2400 Crittenden Drive. So that could also be a good resource because they'll have counselors there who can kind of talk to them and help them with that. They also do outreach on the street for looking for young adults. And that's helped us bring that number down, but still 300 and something young people in our shelters is something we'd like to do.
So were you saying, because I know normally Safe Place literally deals with under 18 teens, so they will service the 18 to 24?
They don't stay there overnight. They just have a drop-in center where they can come to. But they have a partnership with Salvation Army. So if it's someone who's aged out of their program and is now over 18, they will stay at Salvation Army, but their same case manager will still come visit them and help them try to make that transition.
That's exactly where I referred that student to I mentioned earlier. She's right, she's not 18, but she's not 21 either, and so I'm glad to know that that was a referral that got her where she needed to be at that point.
Yeah, that's where I would send somebody
Yeah.
if they were in that
Yeah.
age group, is to
Yeah.
the Y, and then they could help them get one of those beds in Salvation Army.
One of the things you talked about a year and a half ago, the old days, whatever, I had a student in class who started out the semester, she was an excellent student, started out the semester great, found out, she doesn't know why I found out, that she was homeless, living in the car with her 3 children. She was a very proud person, didn't want nobody to know. Some of you in this room probably know who I'm talking about. And you could tell she was struggling but was very private. And so she stopped coming to class, or she started coming one day, one part, missing the last part of the week, and vice versa, until it finally ebbed off that she totally stopped coming to class. And so, phone was off, all that was off. So as an instructor and a counselor, at that point, two of us tried to reach out to her to kind of not, because she was very private and didn't want people to know that she was living in the car. It was a result of divorce. Husband got the house, kids had nothing, she had no family here, blase, 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 blase. And so we were able to get her hooked up with a few little things, but that was, I'm glad, because it was hard back then to get her and the kids situated where she could still come to school.
Yeah.
So I'm glad
Well,
to
and
understand.
if it's somebody who, in that situation, it does sound like a shelter and then getting through that process would be helpful. But if somebody gets to the call center, the 637 beds number, and they have a place, but there are other issues, that they will continue to refer them elsewhere, most likely to the neighborhood places who coordinate the homeless prevention services. So I want to make sure I leave time for the others, but I'll take them.
Right. I was wondering, a lot of the, you say, like, especially the families that, call back or will call you, but a lot of these people don't have phones. And I wondered if there's a centralized, like, I know St. John Center, there's just a big whiteboard that people can receive calls there and they'll write it on there and guys, but if that's only men, they can come in and check their messages. Is there anything like that centralized? Again, if I don't have a phone and you're trying to call me, telling me you have a bed, that's not gonna help me.
Yeah, I'm surprised. We have very few clients who don't have a phone. At least they can get the little free phones, which you have to add the minutes to. But most of the clients we have actually have smartphones.
Well, that's.
But they still could go to one of the day shelters or somewhere else and call. They don't actually have to have a phone to call. We wouldn't be able to call them back to say, are you sure you want to stay on this list? But they could, go somewhere and call us. I do want to make sure the others get a chance to talk.
Yeah, we'll do more questions at the end as you guys think of those.
I'm just gonna sit. Natalie made it really formal, but I'm gonna say sit.
It's short, so
Like Maggie said, I'm Tamara Wright, but I'm Vice President of Programs at the Center for Women and Families. I've been with the center for, it'll be 13 years this month, so I've done all range of services with them, and for the last couple of years now have been really over everything client-related and all programs. So I will just go quickly through sort of what our services are and what we do. I think probably most of you, I hope, have heard at least about the Center for Women and Families, but we are the local domestic violence rape crisis center. So we work with victims of really intimate personal violence and or sexual assault. We provide, first and foremost, which is what people think of as shelter. So we offer shelter to those that need immediate shelter for safety issues. And we're gonna pretend like we still are in our big, beautiful building on 2nd Street, but we aren't right now. We had serious roof damage and have had to relocate shelter on multiple occasions now, and we are, the construction has started on our new building, our old building that will be brand new to us when we get back in. They're currently working on the roof, and we are taking advantage of this crisis to really re-look at how we're programming inside the shelter. So I'm able to add some extra beds to shelter. Gonna really go with a what we call a trauma-informed way of working with our clients, so making sure that clients have the best of what they can while they're living in shelter with us. So right now, we are operating out of an undisclosed location, but we do have shelter. In normal circumstances, we house about 79 families at any given time. We house both men, women, and children in shelter. We do not obviously house both parties of the relationship. This is just for the victim. And we have programming, once you're inside the shelter, for everybody who's there. So we have children's programming, and we have programming for the victim themselves, for the adult client. Groups, individual counseling, case management. It's our goal really to get somebody through our system of emergency shelter within about 90 days. We don't have a length of stay, but that's sort of our goal going in, and we try to set that expectation for the clients as well, so that they know that, hey, we're gonna be working really hard as quickly as we can with you. Safety is first and foremost for us, so as long as somebody still has safety issues, then they're gonna stay with us until that's no longer an issue. We also offer all of those same services for people who don't need shelter. Not everybody needs shelter with us. Some people are still in domestic violence relationships who just need some support to get through that. We know that domestic violence affects everybody. It doesn't have any race or religion or socioeconomic background. So some of those that see us non-residentially that don't need shelter have family support or financial support and are able to get out of the relationship, but just need support for what is going on with them. So we work with them with case management through change, through grief, because they've just lost a relationship. No matter how bad it is, it's still a loss. And then we also work with the kids. So we talk to the kids about that and offer groups for them and individual counseling also for the kids. We do, quickly, we do legal advocacy. So we go to court with people who have legal issues, mostly just protective orders, some criminal stuff, but mostly it's protective order related. We do hospital advocacy. So every time there's a sexual assault victim that shows up at any local hospital, we respond as an advocate to be there with that person during the exam if they want us, or during an investigation, like for them. We also respond for domestic violence victims that show up at the hospital, but only at University of Louisville. Otherwise, I think we would probably be at, it would be a full-time job for somebody to be at every hospital all the time. We also do housing advocacy. So besides emergency shelter, we have 3 options of transitional housing. We have permanent housing, and we are hopefully getting ready to build a second permanent housing in Shelbyville. We serve 7 counties in Kentucky and 2 in Indiana. So we also have a shelter in Indiana and do all of the same things there. It's a smaller shelter, but still with, it's full all the time, as are we, all the time. Anybody who has worked in this community and has tried to call and get somebody into shelter, you're gonna know that we're full. If somebody has serious safety issues, we are gonna get them into a hotel, into shelter, to something for a temporary basis, because that's really key. One of our great programs we have is with Louisville Metro Police Department. Anytime they go on the scene of a domestic violence issue, anytime, every single domestic violence run they make, they do a lethality screen. And so they're asking those victims 11 questions, and if they score high lethality on that, they automatically call us right then and there on the scene, and we talk to that victim. It's about 10 minutes, and provide immediate safety planning for them, and figure out if they need shelter for the night, because we know that that's a really dangerous high lethality time for that victim. When police get involved, sometimes the result can be later on within 24 hours, homicide or further abuse could happen. So what else do we do? Lots of things. And then, so that's all a problem, right? Well, one of the things we also do is prevention. So we have a huge prevention education team that is out in the schools, both high school, middle school, elementary schools. We are on college campuses. We are anywhere anybody will have us, talking about how to teach people to prevent violence from happening. Most specifically, sexual violence and violence within high school relationships. We go in and talk to kids about how to be active bystanders. So what do you need to do if you see this happening around you with your friends or in families, that kind of stuff. And we participated in a 5-year study across the state of Kentucky with high schools to implement what's called Green Dot, which is a bystander intervention program. And the results will be out really soon, but the decrease in violence in the state of Kentucky because of that is astronomical. The percentage is higher than 50% of the lessened rate of violence in high school students amongst the schools we did the program in. So we get that it's a problem. We've been doing intervention work for a really long time at the center, and in the last couple of years have shifted our focus to do prevention work. So if you have a student who is, has come to you and needs to process a domestic violence situation, if you have a student you suspect is in domestic violence relationship, we can talk to you as well. we, on our crisis line, you can call 211 and they're gonna give you to us. And we can talk to you about how to talk to the client. We can direct you to our website with resources. We are happy at any time to bring resources out here for you to have them in your classrooms or just in your bag or however you want to keep them so you always have something to give to somebody. We have all kinds of brochures to talk about how it affects the children, how if somebody's been sexually assaulted, how it might affect a parent or a partner during that time. So we are really full of resources for anybody who's been affected. We don't just work with the victims, so we can sit with the family members, we can talk to teachers, we can talk to concerned neighbors and parents and any number of people. Mostly what we're gonna do is safety plan, and we're gonna help you, because that's our thing is let's hope it doesn't happen again. So what do we need to do, like really immediately to keep that person safe? Whether that's making copies of important documents, talking to neighbors, can they reach out to somebody? More than likely, that person who's in that relationship already knows how to keep themselves safe because they've been doing it. So we're gonna go back to them and say, what have you been doing that's working? How can we continue to help make sure that that works? If somebody calls through the single point of entry for shelter, they're screening. If it's domestic violence, they send them to us. So we work really closely with the coalition and with the single point of entry line, and we make referrals to them as well because we have a lot of people who call us that we don't have beds for, but don't have immediate safety issues, and that's the direction we have to go in at that point. So that was a lot, and I could really talk for hours.
Any questions?
What questions do you have?
Right
about
now,
that?
we'll go to another round for everybody, but we'll take a couple of questions.
I was just curious, I know it's usually women who are victims of domestic violence, but are men welcome at your facility?
Yes.
And also, what about same-sex couples?
Yes, all of the above.
Okay.
We have had, for probably about the last 2.5 years, have had a male victim in shelter consistently, different men. As many as 4 at one time, from all different relationships, so same-sex relationships and male-female, and have had men in with their children in shelter. So we've had lots of men. All of our services are open to men as well. We are still working on creating in shelter, once we are in shelter, groups and stuff that are not so gender specific. So we're working on changing our language around how we do groups and whether we need to do some male-specific groups. Sometimes it's only 1 or 2 at a time, and they don't necessarily aren't interested in coming to group anyway, which is fine. But we want to work on some of that stuff. So yes, anybody's welcome. We have a room that we sort of keep aside, specialty room for elderly victims who need access to get to us quicker and easier. Transsexual or transgender victims, we do it all.
Someone else?
I just want to commend you on your program.
Thank you.
Everything you said was on par. You never know where you're going to be and when you're going to be. I had a family member last year who had to come live with me because of that. And everything you said, you all did. And so just to let you know what she said is true, because I had no clue. I mean, it was amazing because I'm a counselor and I tell students about this, but when you have someone you know that it touches in your family and you kind of help, and this was an elderly person. And so, which was a real eye-opening experience for that.
Yes.
And so I just wanted to commend you on your program. The other thing is, I'm always getting free stuff for our students, and do I have to come down and get free stuff? I know I'm low on my stuff.
Tell me what you need, like brochures and stuff?
Yeah, brochures and
Yeah.
stuff. Yeah.
No, I can get it out to you.
Yeah,
Are you
okay.
here on this campus?
I'm on this campus.
Okay,
Yes.
let's just chat afterwards, I'll get
Okay.
a contact number
That
for
works.
you. Yeah.
I've been a recipient of your services and.
Well, good, thank you for sharing.
Everything you do.
Thanks.
I just wanted to add,
Yes.
I am a volunteer.
Oh,
for
good.
the-
We all need volunteers, lots of volunteers.
And I just wanted to just, just working here and working with students, and on the flip side, when I'm working on behalf of the center, the two worlds do collide. And my first hospital run was a JCTC student, and last summer. And so, then teaching last fall, we had a student, same situation. So it is prevalent, it is a lot, but the more I think that we as staff and faculty can know and get involved and attend the training, it can really help, because the safety planning is very crucial. And so just the more we know and how we can be an advocate and know how to do with the Green Dot training, I mean, a little goes a long way. So that's my hope we get to this place with this conversation at this campus, is that we're growing and understanding how these social issues really impact all aspects of student life.
Well, if you think just real fast, it's 1 in 4 are victims of domestic violence. So you know plenty of people who have been affected by it, whether or not they've told you or not, I promise you, you know them.
Right.
So they're out there. Yes, ma'am.
Real quick point, when I first started working at Jefferson, I went through the training, I believe it was like 40 some odd hours.
Yeah, 40.
Very thorough, great training. I personally, like Cindy had mentioned, had a family member that had went through domestic violence issues, and I didn't understand why they didn't just leave at that point in time. And when I went through that training, it really enlightened me, so it just, yeah.
And I think
Wonderful
especially for
training.
students, because probably if they're students, there's a good chance maybe that they're not able to work and support themselves, or maybe they have kids.
Yes.
And so staying in that relationship
Yes.
is a whole lot easier than it is to leave. Because
Yes.
then they're on their own for childcare, they're on their own for transportation maybe, so they're on their own for a whole lot of things. And people don't always make that connection. So instead, we're gonna help them stay, how do you stay safe if you're gonna stay in the relationship? And if you're gonna stay, then let's talk about what kind of things we can put in place to get you out and on your own as quickly as we can.
Yeah, let's do one more question, and then we'll move to Stan, and we'll circle back and do questions again.
Okay, I'm interested in, how do the students or we find out about volunteer opportunities for all three of you? Just really quickly, are they on your website, you know what volunteer aspects are available?
Yes.
And we just apply on the website as well?
Yeah, and we also have, if you go to our website, which is louhomeless.org, you can click into all of our members, which includes both the other two agencies here, and it will give you a description of all 30 different agencies and like what age group they serve and what specialties they do, so you could, you know, click into an agency that fits your interests. So, you know, I want to work with elderly, or I want to work with kids, or I want to work with domestic violence, you could find that agency and click through to their website to find them out.
We also have Volunteer Connection on Metro United Way's website, so you can go through metrounitedway.org and say, I want to volunteer, and it will come, there's all sorts, all these agencies can register opportunities through that, and so they're on there putting like, I need people to do A, B, and C, and it'll have you details about what kinds of jobs and that sort of stuff. You can go directly to the agency or through Metro United Way. That'll give you opportunities that they've identified and already put up. So either route works, but just to know that that's also available. So food access has been a big question. So you guys are often faced with the story of, I don't know how to feed my kids tonight, I don't know how to feed myself tonight. And Stan is the expert in the world of food security in our local community, so we're really excited to have him here. So Stan, no pressure.
No, in fact, you know, we're parents of school-age children, and being called experts, that's kind of nice. It's usually the antonym that we're getting called. Thanks for having us. I think in speaking with food issues as well as all of this, there are two issues you guys have in working with students. And the first is that someone who's suffering food insecurity or hunger, just like domestic violence or issues with homelessness, it's invisible. They don't go over, they might have bruises, maybe not ones you can see. Hunger you definitely can't see. And right now in our community, and it's been this way for several years now, there are 200,000 people in Kentuckiana that are challenged with getting enough food to be healthy. And that's 1 in 6 people. So they're in your classroom. They're in every zip code. They're in every neighborhood. What's neat, not neat that folks are hungry, or neat that there are these issues, but what's neat about our community is our response to it. Dare to Care is fortunate. We have over 200 food pantries throughout this community that partner with us, that we supply food to. So there are people suffering hunger in every community, or in every zip code, every neighborhood. We also have support for them there. Eastern Area Community Ministries on Westport Road is our largest food pantry. Shively Area Ministries, as well as, I mean, it's everywhere. The support is out there. Any time of the day, there's a meal being served, usually by one of Natalie's partners, St. Vincent de Paul, Salvation Army, Wayside. There are meals that folks can access at emergency kitchens. We used to call them soup kitchens, and that has kind of a nasty implication to it. Plus, some of these places are serving some pretty good meals, so it goes beyond soup. Another service that's available to your students, and those students that have parents, are kids cafes. There are 25 Dare to Care kids cafes throughout the community. They're in Boys and Girls Clubs, Metro Parks community centers, neighborhood house, community centers. And again, that is pretty much, it's spread pretty well around our community. So your students, if they have kids and they are suffering from, or they're challenged to get those kids fed, there are kids cafes that are accessible to them, and those sites are serving meals 5 days a week. Okay, they're hot, warm, balanced meals.
And how do you, so kid just walks in and they heat up?
Kid just walks in, you go to a Boys and Girls Club, and you're not only do the kids get fed a meal, but they're also going to get support, other support they need. They're going to be in a safe place, they're going to have positive adults around them, they're going to get help with their homework and structured recreation. So they're going to have a lot of needs met at those after-school sites. Now the challenge, the second challenge you have, is we have all those great programs, but there remains in our community a stigma about seeking help, whether it's with your homelessness issue or your domestic violence, and definitely with hunger. Yes, we've got meals 24 hours, and 3 meals a day, 7 days a week somewhere in our community, but getting a family to access it, to go to Open Hand Kitchen, or go to the Center of Hope, is a challenge. And I wish I had a magic wand for you, but I'm going to rely on you guys to help folks get rid of that stigma and to remind them that they are not alone. Again, 1 in 6 people in our community are struggling to get the food they need. And a really interesting statistic is that over 40% of those folks have incomes so high that they are disqualified from all the public nutrition programs that are out there. Food stamps, SNAP, free and reduced price lunch at school. But their incomes are too low for them to be able to make ends meet. And again, it may not be a permanent thing. Maybe it's a temporal situation, a car wreck, a health issue, a job loss. But the problem is everywhere. Folks have to understand there's no stigma to reaching out to their neighbors and getting some help, because that's what it is. And then the last thing is just a shameless plug, the Hunger Walk, September 14th. If you're looking for a wonderful opportunity.
So if you wanted to find a food pantry, so if you would explain food bank, food pantry, and that food pantries are where we're going to find the food for clients, and 211 will find it, the local location, multiple locations of possibility. So that, but if you could explain kind of how it all fits together.
Well, and how Dare to Care operates is we are, as a food bank, we have a huge warehouse. Anybody been out to our facility? Yeah. You guys don't get it. So it's 55,000 square foot food storage facility with, tall racking, huge drive-in freezer, and huge drive-in cooler. The way we serve people is by partnering with those agencies I talked about, the churches, the community ministries, the other faith communities in town, the after-school programs, these guys up here. So folks don't really come to us for service. You can reach out to us or to 211, and we can get you to the partner in the neighborhood where someone can go. And so it's accessible to them geographically, and it also may be more accessible to them culturally and from a comfort level, hopefully.
And 211, so contacting 211 and saying, I'm here, and then they would be able to say, these are your options around food. And so knowing that Dare to Care is the backbone of that support. And Dare to Care is one of the best, we have a real opportunity in Louisville that we have one of the best food banks in the country that has had really, as you can hear Stan talk about, a thoughtful approach to what does hunger mean in our community and how do we have a systematic approach to it. But it takes a partnership with these partners and many, many providers across the entire community to make it happen. So, I wanna ask Glenn to join the panel. Glenn is our manager of 211, or you can sit here. But some of the questions you guys might have might not be these guys' questions, but they are something that Glenn can answer, how the responses happen. But this is really your opportunity to ask questions about, well, I've heard this situation, or I have a question. They have expertise in their own space, and then they work in this space, so they know a lot about how the system works. So, hit us on what questions you might have.
I also wanted to add that the little street tips books that I gave everybody, there's extras up here and at the door. Please take them and use them and give to people who need them. Don't want to take them. And you can get more at our office. The address is on the back.
Let's see, I had 2 questions over here.
Are you available to come to classes to talk to various classes? For instance, I teach a class, health, safety, and nutrition. And I also am going to be teaching one on families, communities, and relations. And I think that, all 3 of you would be great to share these programs. And I'm sure that in some of these classes, because most of them are females, and that the possibility of them being in some of these situations could be pretty close.
Yeah, we have, our prevention education team, that's all they do all day long, are educators that come into, they'll do domestic violence overview, they can do a sexual assault overview, they can talk about what our services are,
Can you
all
do
those things.
steaming classes? Because
Yeah.
most of
Oh,
the
yeah.
classes.
Yeah, we can do anything. We do Saturday sometimes. Anybody who wants to hear us talk, we are gonna come back.
Great, great.
So I'll just give you my, the best way to get in touch with those folks
Okay.
when we're done.
Thank you.
She's had her hand up. Go ahead.
I had a question about referring people to a food bank. I worked at a food bank downtown for, 4 or 5 years. And we'd have people show up from a different zip code. And we had this notebook with all of the community ministries, places listed in it. But some of them aren't even by zip code. You could be in that zip code, but go to a different place based on what your street address was or something. And then sometimes you have 2 people in a household, but they only qualify for 1 bag of groceries. Is there any place where there's central rules that explain how all this works, or how you actually help somebody? Because we would have a lot of people in there all at once, and we couldn't give them food, but we'd be trying to send them someplace else.
Well, hopefully it's been simplified since then. And there are certain rules tied to USDA commodities, and you've never heard me talk this briefly, so I'm trying to.
No, you're doing great.
But I think if someone goes to a neighborhood, they're going to get served. I mean, when you go to a partner of Dare to Care, it's a self-declared issue, you need food. Now, and their food will be presented to them. They also then would be presented perhaps with better options for them in their neighborhood. Some of the ministries and that do have kind of gerrymandered boundaries, but hopefully, I think we've gotten better with that. Hopefully, we're getting equal, we will get better in the future. But right now, if someone shows up and they're hungry and they need food, they will get food.
And
That,
he said, hopefully it's gotten better. I mean, there's been a lot of change in the food, as Dare to Care has taken a more and more strategic approach, and really also asked their partners to take a strategic approach. So there have been, just like the single point of entry, which just happened not that long ago, some of these changes are relatively recent. So don't feel like, okay, well, I was there 2 years ago, and it's not the same experience that you would have.
Exactly 2 years ago. And sometimes, we were we're not sure what to do. I would just go into the church kitchen and get them some crackers and peanut butter if I couldn't take it from the food pantry, because we're not going to send them away.
sure, absolutely.
Quick question, do you have a truck or something that goes out into the community?
It's a mobile pantry, and there are 40 different mobile pantry stops each month. And what a mobile pantry, the purpose of a mobile pantry is to get into neighborhoods that don't have traditional structure of food service. They maybe don't have a food pantry in that neighborhood. Or the mobile pantry may be going and delivering produce in a neighborhood where the food pantry can't store perishable food. It's designed to go into rural areas, into rural counties, Henry County and some other places that are not as well served with other nonprofits. Also serves more and more senior housing, seniors that can't get out. And again, especially with the that's got more and more of a focus on perishable food. But there are 40 stops around town that are in around Kentucky a month.
Would you ever consider doing something like that at a student resource fair on campus? Is that something that could be possible for students that are in need? Just at an
It's
event?
if we were able to, if we could logistically and from a resource position pull it off, we'd consider that,
Okay.
absolutely.
Show that they're eligible income-wise and all that?
It's self-declared.
Okay,
so they-
yeah.
People don't have to prove that they're in need.
Okay.
So you would consider that as a possibility?
Yes.
Can we get your number too?
Yeah.
Okay, yeah.
If you call 211, then we would connect you with Dare to Care to find the mobile pantries. So to know that like mobile pantries, there are, this is really Stan's, he's writing his name. I believe they have some pretty secure places that they've been going for now. They found the places they need to repeat deliver, and there's a really distinct delivery system. And we've worked on them in partnership around volunteer opportunities. These are staffed by volunteers often, volunteers that we help partner with Metro United, we help partner with Dare to Care to find appropriate volunteer groups that help staff it. It's just like a regular pantry that might be run by a church, they need a group of volunteers to run it. The same happens in the mobile pantry, a group of volunteers help. They drive the truck up, but volunteers are here to help work with the clients in the neighborhood. And I know those are particularly important for older adults because the access issues are even more challenging. So, is there anything else about mobile pantries? Did I get it right?
Other than, that's a great point, a huge shout, it's a great partnership with Metro United Way. You mentioned the Volunteer Connection, their volunteer partners really work well to get, 40 sites, and they need volunteers at those sites, nearly all of them, to help distribute the food. That's another awesome example of how our community really supports, we support each other.
I have a question.
You go ahead. She couldn't
Oh.
see you about to talk.
For you, Tamara, do you do anything with internships for graduate students?
We do. We have the whole gamut really of we have internships and practicums.
Yeah.
The challenge is that our people who are working with clients directly have to have a bachelor's degree already.
Mm-hmm.
So those that are working on a different degree, we can do some different things, and we have been creative in the past with it. I have I won't nearly be able to tell you everything that we can do. So that's my email address. That's really the best way to get in touch with me. If you've got questions like that, then I just forward that on to the right person who can, I have my clinical director runs all of our student programming.
Mm-hmm.
So getting people lined up for internships, if they need service hours, if you need a service project, if you've got, if the whole group wants to do a volunteer project together, like all of those things we can do. And everybody has their own email address, but if it just comes to me, I can pass it along. But the awareness education for anybody who wants somebody to come out to your classroom, or if you want brochures, or if you need any of that, all of that goes through awareness education. And he'll answer that email. My only request would be if you could just copy me on that email so that I know that it's coming from you guys, so that I can make sure it happens as it's supposed to.
We just identify ourselves as we were.
Yeah, just say that I heard Tamara talk on campus. And on the.
You had a question?
October, is that still domestic violence month?
It is.